Chapter 261. A 262. The day after Konan got her new apprentice and spent the dinner introducing Izumi to Rei and his other girls, all hell broke loose. Suddenly, the other three women also wanted their apprentices. Who wouldn't want a grunt who you can teach how to fill paperwork for you, after all? Sure, using the shadow clones was one alternative, but honestly, having somebody else to deal with, it simply felt a lot sweeter. Only Ringo didn't care to teach anybody, as she was quite satisfied with her current daily routine, saying that teaching would reduce her forging time too much. In short, she was far too lazy. Anyway, this resulted in a fervent lookout for their own apprentices that could eventually take over their departments. Naturally, for such a task, the requirements were quite steep, especially when loyalty was concerned. Pakura had it quite easy. She already had Maki, who she was grooming to take over her position in the village on the other side. Maki was dedicated, and after living years in the other-sided village, she fully considered it her home. It was a no-brainer that she would succeed Pakura in due time. After all, Rei made the village on the other side because having the backing of a whole hidden village or nation was what he needed. To be honest, he really couldn't be bothered ruling over it for more than was strictly necessary. It was really just a comparison of benefits and effort needed. He put enormous effort into creating it, and he indeed got the wanted benefits, but in his opinion, it was better to dump the village on somebody else's shoulders, somebody he trusted. Somebody who was gifted and experienced in the administration of day-to-day running of the village. Somebody like Maki after she finishes her apprenticeship for Pakura and climbs the ranks a bit. Needless to say, Rei's goal was to become a daimyo-like existence in the Spring Country. He would have his minister, Mr. Kazehana, who really wanted nothing more but the country to prosper and the civilians to live good lives. With such a good minister, there wasn't much Rei would have to do, and with giving command of the village to Maki, Rei will be free to do his hobbies and spend time with his girls. It was the ultimate dream of any sloth. Ah well, all in due time. Back to Pakura. For the position of KasiCair, Pakura was grooming Temari. Even if Pakura never outright said so, Rei could tell, and he actually approved. Gaara was a bit too unstable and young. Plus, people still despised him. Plus, there will be no overconfident, cheeky, exuberant, moronic, and brainwashed Naruto to beat some sense into the guy because of lucking out in their fight. Rei's interference with Naruto basically destroyed that possibility. There was no real reason to not approve of Pakura choosing Temari for the position. It might have seemed counterproductive since Temari watched Pakura kill her father, but surprisingly, the girl held no resentment towards her new mentor. Rei would even go so far as to proclaim that Temari actually felt a bit grateful and resolved to not disappoint. It was a bit adorable from the Pakura's small desert flower. Tsunade had an awkward time looking for apprentices. Rei knew she would have loved taking Shizune in again and bestowing her newfound knowledge upon the woman. But after all these years, Shizune was more loyal to Konoha than Tsunade, and that put a final wrench in these plans. That was not even mentioning their slightly messy parting when Tsunade tried to talk Shizune out of marrying Asuma after she gently probed her former apprentice and got the impression Shizune never allowed the guy to flirt and seduce other women during his long stay in the fire capital. Alas, Shizune took it the wrong way, and Tsunade didn't have enough patience to show her the light. In the end, that relationship sailed until Shizune got her head out of her ass. Tsunade's words, not Rei's. With Shizune out, Tsunade decided to walk the harder path and commit to training Anko to eventually be her replacement. Poor Anko was incredibly excited when she heard that she would spend the time Naruto was in the academy by training with Tsunade. She was even more excited when Tsunade for the first time showed her the village on the other side. The woman even reaffirmed her loyalty to Rei, informing him that Konoha never really gave her anything, so there was not much of a reason to be loyal to that village. Well, Anko's excitement quickly faded when Tsunade showed the snake charmer the training grounds. For the first time in her life, Anko actually missed Orochimaru's training. Sure, the man was brutal, but at least he was not a medical expert. Tsunade simply didn't care how damaged Anko was during the training. She simply fixed her and threw her back into the fray, whereas Anko had no choice but to adapt. If that was not enough, Tsunade then used the threat of an increase in this type of training to motivate Anko to learn medical books, something the snake mistress was starting to hate with a passion. Sure, she loved her poisons and knew about them more than anyone in Konoha, but that was that. And this was this. Unfortunately for Anko, Tsunade's goal was to train a medic capable of heading the medical department in the village on the other side after she retires. And Tsunade was not taking no for an answer. Only her determination to once kill Orochimaru gave Anko enough resolve to pull through the training. Shikaku also proclaimed he will under no circumstances take more time from his already busy schedule to train a successor. But the man also demanded Tsunade trained one, citing her prowess as the reason. The smart bastard simply wanted to get out of his responsibilities. But Tsunade decided to be a bit devious, and after a brief chat with an excited Chunin called Kurenai Yuhi, an idea that it would be hilarious if the next Hokage focused on illusions appeared in Tsunade's head. It would be a long time before Tsunade trusted Kurenai enough to show her the village on the other side and tell the girl the whole truth, but she definitely took the girl under her wing and started training her. Not that she told Kurenai what future she envisioned for her. That would come only after she trusted her enough. The most problematic of the lot was by far Mei. She decided to take Yugito and Yagura as her apprentices. Not that the two Jinchuriki got any say in the decision. Not even Rei could refuse her when she said, "But they are already my pets. Isn't it only natural to train them to listen?" What the hell was Rei supposed to answer with such logic acting against him? In the end, he simply gave Yugito and Yagura a half-pitying, half-apologetic look before approving of the decision right in front of the two poor sods. In reality, Mei chose her kitty, meaning Yugito, because they got really friendly over the years. As for Yagura, the kitty turtle, as Mei dubbed him because he was still child-sized despite being an adult, Mei picked him because of his ability to transform into full Biju mode. With her Biju, Auburn, finally about to mature, Mei was capable of using the Biju mode to an extent, and as such, it would have been nice to have two playmates, no? There really wasn't much Rei could do against such impeccable logic. He only hoped Mei would not impart her obsession with world-ending jutsu on her two new apprentices. When Rei decided to be more passive in his foreign policies for the following years, it meant the new age of development for the hidden villages under his command. Kirigakure was the first one that was heavily affected by that decision. It was not because of Ringo rather than Yagura, who was like a chipmunk high on coffee. The guy really wanted to make Kirigakure better, and he definitely showed it by annoying Rei enough that he deemed it important to finally start the reforms in Kirigakure rather than spend even one more day with the exuberant former 4th Mizukage. Frankly, at times Rei even regretted taking the guy in. Who cares about confusing Akatsuki and denying them access to the third tail if he had to suffer his overly excitable nature every time reforming Kiri was mentioned? For such a serious kind of guy, Yagura sure acted like a kid once he realized he no longer needed to carry the burden of being a leader. Years slowly started to pass by, and Kirigakure felt the reforms fully. The very first thing that changed was the graduation exam. No longer did the kids fight each other to the death for the right to become ninja. That said, neither Ringo nor Rei felt that the tradition was fundamentally bad. It took a lot of discussions with Yagura, but in the end, even the turtle midget had to give in to their arguments. The tradition in itself was good. It just needed a big overhaul to be efficient. The final graduation exam was still a battle between the students, but it was no longer to the death. After all, the village had to know the approximate level of its graduates, plus such an event could serve as entertainment for the local populace, bringing in a bit of profit in the entrance fees. That said, the graduates were still told to do their best. The battles were still supervised by a Jonin-ranked ninja, so if any death occurred, it would imply the proctor is not apt to be a Jonin if he can't even stop an academy student from delivering a killing blow to another academy student. Hence, the proctors made damn sure to pay attention no matter how bored they were due to watching two novices fight. That was not the only reform for the academy. Not by a long shot. The academy curriculum was completely overhauled too, implementing chakra control exercises and some low-level water jutsu in preparation to learn Kirigakure no Jutsu as one part of the graduation exam. Honestly, the only reason why academies did not teach any useful jutsus or chakra control exercises was simple. Many students drop out or fail the graduation exam, and the villages simply do not want civilians with knowledge of how to improve their control over the chakra. After all, the more widespread such things are, the more people can experiment and actually make their own jutsus. People who are not affiliated with the village, people who are civilians and can freely travel. It would have been a disaster to start them on their training only for them to later on leave. The worst part, the villages would be unable to even mark them a nuke nin because, well, academy students are not yet a part of the ninja ranks. The solution to this problem was surprisingly simple. The village just has to guarantee that everybody would pass the academy. Granted, it was a nice little theory, but it was a lot harder to manage such a feat in practice. Basically, Ringo, which really means AO, created a system where every graduate has 5 chances to graduate from the academy. The graduating age was still 10 years old, but the graduation rules were a bit different. Everybody could fail a graduation exam 4 times, which meant returning to the academy for an additional year. Flunking once would be fine, but twice? Well, let's just say the entire class would be silently mocking such a person, not to mention those who flunked more than twice. Such a person would be blatantly obvious in the class, as he or she would be older than everybody else, signifying his or her ineptitude. It was meant to motivate kids in that position to work harder. Naturally, the teachers would watch those like hawks to make sure there are no special circumstances involved. The curriculum was not really all that hard. It was set up with 10-years-old orphan kids in mind. The clan children should have no problem at all, and could probably graduate by 7 years old as long as they learned the necessary jutsu that were being tested. Heck, even the orphans should have no problem as long as they put in the necessary effort. That said, Ringo made sure nobody could graduate early. If somebody special was found, he or she would simply be offered a special tutelage for the remainder of the academy years. There was no need to send kids under 10 years of age to the battlefield. Such a practice was counterproductive considering the low percentage of them that would actually return. If somebody actually managed to flunk 5 consecutive years, it would be a hell of a suspicious matter. If a 15-year-old kid can't manage what an average 10-year-old can, then something is either very, very suspicious about him and his performance is faked, which should have been spotted by the teachers during all the academy years, or the kid is simply so freakingly stupid, he is not fit to be a ninja. In such a case, there is no need to worry about him spreading chakra control techniques, much less worry about him actually creating a technique by himself. Hence, the major problem of Kirigakure was on its way to being solved. Nobody complained about bloody graduation exams that perpetually halved the graduating class, killing off many late bloomers in the process, and slowly crippling the Kirigakure's ninja force. And the actual number of graduating kids would effectively double with their quality improving. In just a few years, the Kirigakure's council predicted Kiri's forces to actually catch up to other major hidden villages number-wise. Naturally, such statistics caused the Kiri ninjas to revere Ringo as their savior. In her hands, the village was starting to thrive both economically and militaristically. Ao could only cry in the corner, muttering about not being given his just credit. And Ringo? She couldn't care less.